Hello and welcome to the Superhero Podcast, and this week we are talking about, well, you've obviously read in the title description, because a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, depending on when you watch the video, me and Comic Uno, we did our top 5 favourite heroes, and people liked it, so I thought, why not do our top 5 favourite villains to round off the whole bunch, and obviously with me again is my lovely guest, Comic Uno.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Alright, and so, like last time, you went first, so it would only do the pleasure if you would go first again, please, with your number 5 villain.
Alright, my number 5 is Green Goblin Norman Osborn. This is a character, I'm just a humongous Spider-Man fan, and he is definitely the arch nemesis of Spider-Man. I don't care what people say. Some people say it's Dr. Octopus now, but I still think it's Norman Osborn. I think he's a total threat. But he's kind of like the Lex Luthor of the Marvel Universe. I like the way he has this suave about him. And of course he's just done so many bad things to Peter. Killed off Gwen. There's a number of things he's done. So I just think he's just a humongous threat of not just Spider-Man, but the Marvel Universe in general.
Totally agree with you. I mean, he's just one of those villains that instantly comes to mind when you think about the Spider-Man franchise as a whole. You can just think, oh, what's one of Spider-Man's biggest villains? Oh, Green Goblin, of course.
Of course, yeah. I think even people that don't read comics know that.
My number 5 is Mystique. Now, she's not really much for like a world-destroying villain, but she's a very cunning villain, and she's been around for a while, so obviously people would say that her most notable points are that she's had 3 kids, she's had one with Sabretooth, she's had Nightcrawler as a child, and she's the foster mom of Rogue. But she's also been on loads of different teams, like an X-Factor, X-Men, and the Brotherhood. And since I'm not really happy with how she was written for a good long while, because she was kind of seen as this a ha-ha-ha cackling villain in the background. But since the start of like the revitalization of the Marvel franchise, she's kind of grown more as a really smart character. For one of the most evil things that she did recently was that she kidnapped Dazzler literally the day she was made a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and then basically kept her sedated and was harvesting her mutant gene for months just to create new drugs for mutants, and it was only Magneto who managed to save her, which I thought was pretty damn cruel, if anything.
Yeah, Mystique is a really interesting villain, because I feel like you never know what her motive is, and I think that's the creepiest thing about her.
Sometimes they do point her in the direction of being an anti-hero, but I think she's more suited to being a villain, and simply put, she's just trying to be the big fish in the pond all the time, but she's just not really ready to take on the bigger fish.
Yeah, I agree with you, definitely. I think it's just her. I don't know if she's a true villain. I think she's just somebody that she's selfish in a way, I would say. Yeah. So, and I think that's what's really interesting about her. She's always looking out for herself, no matter what, which makes her a villain.
But obviously for later this year, she's obviously going to get more time to show off how cruel she is, because she's being featured prominently in the Logan Legacy or in the new Wolverines book, which she obviously is connected to Wolverine in a big way. And obviously I'm interested to see where Charles Soule actually takes it, because it could be a really interesting direction.
Yeah, I agree. I read the first issue. I don't know if I'm going to read more Wolverines, but I think Mystique fans will be very happy with the direction Soule's going with.
I think, yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, Wolverine's number 1, a very odd issue, first issue, because it's trying to fit a lot of characters into a first issue of a book, and then it brings in the Wrecking Crew and then Mr. Sinister, and you're just going to go trying to tell them to slow down. But it honestly does like an interesting premise from like the very first page. You can see that there is something that Mystique is going to do in the future.
Yeah, I think the thing that turns me off with Wolverines is that it's weekly and it's $3.99 book. That's what totally turned me off from it.
Well, yeah, it's perfectly. That's perfectly understandable. I think, yeah, I'll see how it goes, but yeah. So, do you want to hit us with your number 4?
Yes. I think obviously this is one of the most iconic villains ever, and you'll see a lot of iconic villains of mine, because I think they're not overrated at all. They're on that list for a reason. And my number 4 is the Joker. He's so creepy, and what I like about the Joker is he has a lot of different a lot of different writers write him differently, really. Sometimes he's, that clown that is not creepy, but yeah, it's like Batman Anime Series. It's not as creepy as, like, Snyder's Joker.
Oh, good God, not Snyder's.
Murderous Joker, yeah. So I liked all the different ideas of Joker, and that he's not just kind of one person. It depends on what writer's writing him. And he's just creepy. He's definitely deserves his fame.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the Joker and I have had a kind of like a love-hate relationship, because I think, although I love Snyder as a writer, I always get turned off by his Joker because it's just too creepy. I mean, it's too weird. I mean, it honestly just makes you feel like, it's creepy reading his style of Joker, which is good, because obviously that's meant to be the purpose of the character. But I think sometimes it does get a little too much, and you're like, oh, I really hate this character, because he's just such, like, an insane person. And yeah, I'll agree. I mean, I always prefer, like, the kind of the animated series style of the Joker with Mark Hamill voicing. And obviously with the New 52, he's had plenty of time to develop. I mean, he had Death of the Family, where he didn't actually do that much. And obviously we're doing Endgame now, where he's actually doing quite a lot, which is actually pretty interesting at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say he's a very iconic villain.
He is.
And so for my number 4, I chose a big hitter, because he's one of the DC's big bads. He's probably below the Joker on known villainy, I'd say. But he's still a pretty big bad. I'm going with Darkseid.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
My original interest with the character came from the Superman animated series, when he was voiced by Michael Ironside, because he just had that really cold, distant voice that was just made him sound like a perfect villain. I've read a few issues of him, like with the New Gods and then Final Crisis.
Yeah.
And then obviously, he's just immensely powerful. He's just one of those villains that you just think, we just can't do anything to stop him. Oh, let's just put the entire Justice League together and we'll stop him somehow. But it's just like, he's just one of the DC's biggest bad, and the fact that he's so powerful and barely anyone can beat him is just why I like him so much, because he's just so unapproachable.
Yeah, I think he's a really cool Justice League villain, just for all the reasons you said. He's just way too powerful for one hero to stop him.
I hope to see more from him. Obviously, he's having a big thing in Earth 2 right now, with like their Earth 2 World's End and whatever, and obviously whatever's going to come from Convergence. But we shall see how that progresses in the future. So, hit us with your number 3.
Number 3 is another big hitter from DC. I mean, there's always that debate, is DC villains then better than Marvel villains? But for me, is Lex Luthor. This is a guy, again, same thing for Norman Osborn, is the suave of the character. And especially now that he's a hero in the Justice League, I think is very interesting. I love his monologue to himself, because he always thinks he's right. He always thinks that Superman's the villain because he's different and that he's an alien. So I kind of like his mindset of being a villain, So yeah, the monologue always gets me with Lex Luthor. You can tell he's a very smart person, but at the same time, not very open-minded. So yeah, Lex Luthor. And also I fell in love with the character in Smallville. I think Michael Rosenbaum did a great job with him on that show. But there's been some great portrayals in media with him, and of course the comics also. And
I bet you're looking forward to Jesse Eisenberg playing him.
I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, I think it's just very little you can kind of pick apart from Lex Luthor, because he's just such a good villain.
Yeah, really. He's just superb. I totally agree.
Well, my number 3 is kind of timely for, obviously, the start of 2015. He's going to be a big hit this year, obviously, because of his movie coming out. But my number 3 is Ultron. Now, obviously it's a bit of a timely choice, but he just has to be put on the list. It's because he's just such a cool... but also such a great mistake that he can ruin so many lives. This one mistake that Hank Pym can make that can just be this ultimate villain that literally can't be beat. And he is pretty much indestructible, because he can just download himself into a new body over and over again. And we won't speak about the utter mess of Age of Ultron, because it was a long while ago. We don't need to remind ourselves of that.
We do not need that story arc. I still don't understand why they're calling the movie Age of Ultron.
I'm really looking forward to how James Spader plays the character. I mean, from the trailer, it just looks so creepy.
Yeah, that
cool.
puppet line, I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be such a good movie. I love the tone they showed with Ultron.
I've been saying to my friends that this movie isn't going to be like the old ones. Like, this is going to be a movie that has lasting consequences, because like Ultron isn't just one of those villains you can introduce willy-nilly and just kill off straight away. I mean, like I said, he's pretty much indestructible. And yeah, I mean, he hasn't been. Obviously, there's a great like kind of an Elseworld story coming out from Marvel, from Rick Remender, of Rage of Ultron, which I'm looking forward to reading, which looks pretty interesting. And obviously he'll appear more in Secret Wars, because obviously there was something about an Ultron book within Secret Wars as well this year. So we'll see how that goes. But he's just like a really interesting villain. I mean, it's just the fact you really can't reason with a computer who knows it's basically right all the time. Yeah,
he's just a very creepy villain. And then also, I mean, in the movie, obviously they're not showing this, but making Ant-Man create the villain and just showing how, honestly, Ant-Man's pretty dark of a character. It's interesting to see that also.
I mean, the fact that some of the stuff he's done is just, I mean, I was doing some research from one of my character histories, and basically he kidnapped Janet Van Dyne. Basically wanted to trying to transfer her consciousness into Jocasta.
Yeah.
And then basically made Pym do it himself. Like basically saying, oh, Ultron's right, I want you in this body. And she's like, you're insane.
Yeah, truthfully. Yeah, I totally agree. It's a very interesting thing that a lot of people don't talk about.
We're down to our top two, and obviously these are our top two favourites. So hit us with your number two. My
number two is Harley Quinn. That's an easy one. She's crazy, funny, and you know what? Again, I don't know why I'm always like with these villains that are just nuts, because I feel like you can't really predict Harley Quinn. Is she not like a horrible person? No. But she will kill anybody, and she'll listen to the Joker, and that's already a bad thing. And also I would say the New 52 Harley is very different from what Harley Quinn used to be, and I'm a little upset with her portrayal in the New 52, but I still love this character. She's so much fun to read.
I mean, from the New 52, yeah, I didn't really like the origin of her, like basically how she was. I mean, I was speaking with someone else about this, how they basically never referred to this once they actually said it the first time, where they basically said that she was just one of other Harleys that had been before. In fact, they've never referred to that again, tries to say that they've kind of swept that under the carpet and never wanted to speak about it again. But, yeah, I mean, she's got. I mean, the book that she has at the moment is mainly a comedy book, which is all right if you're into that kind of thing. And yeah, I've always liked Harley Quinn because she's crazy. I mean, she's basically insane, but she does have like a more humanizing element to her, other than the Joker makes her stand out from his shadow. And I think that's why so many people love her. I mean, she was great in Gotham Sirens with Catwoman and Poison Ivy, because they just bounce off perfectly well with each other. And then she was really good in the animated series, when basically that was how she was created in the first place.
Yeah, I fell in love with her character with the animated series. She just was perfect in that show. And then her other portrayals were really good. And like you said, the New 52 is just more of a comedy of her, which is a little disappointing. Because I don't think they get I think they go a little bit too overboard with the comedy, that you don't really get to see Harley, and that's a big disappointment.
I mean, there was one issue in the recent run where she basically said how she had to basically went to an old person's home as a psychiatrist.
Oh, that was funny. Yeah,
that was it was a funny issue, but it was also like human. It was also nice to see that she isn't completely insane. That she does have this kind of, she can just like go back to, like, she put some makeup on and go down and speak to people about their problems, and that was nice to see. And yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. It's more of a comedy role, and obviously she's in Suicide Squad, but she's varying degrees of success with that character in that series, and obviously we'll see how well it happens in the DC movie that's coming from it.
Yes.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. Harley's a great character. Well, my number two, again, is from DC. It's it's one of Batman's big ones. It's not Joker. It's probably his second. I'm going with Bane. He was the architect of Nightfall, where basically he was clever, he was intelligent, he knew exactly how to take Batman down. And then when Batman was just too tired to try and deal with everyone, he basically took him down pretty easily. And that was when I kind of fell in love with the character, because he's just he's very intelligent. And the fact that he's not as intelligent as Batman, but he's a good tactician. And the fact that he's got this other element of being very strong and very muscular, and it's just the fact that they almost mirror each other, but they're not. The fact that he has strong ideals of honor, and though he'll kill anyone to prove it.
Yeah. And
then obviously you have The Fire Rises. Obviously you have that portrayal of Bane, which it always kind of confuses me in the New 52, because no artist can decide on what he looks like. Because you have regular Bane, you have Dark Knight Rises Bane with his coat, but still the mask. It kind of bugs. They have the same problem with Killer Croc. Like, no artist can draw him one way or another, which kind of confuses the hell out of me all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, they do that a lot with the Batman villains, because I think there's just been so many different portrayals of them. It's like they come up with their own portrayal.
Yeah, Bane is just like such a cool character. I mean, he's I'd say he's more of a villain than an anti-hero, because he's
definitely.
Yeah, he will kill anyone to prove his point. I mean, he was big in the Forever Evil event that just went past with Arkham War. He basically took up the mantle of Batman, basically patrolled the streets, like taking down any rogue villains with the Talons, which was pretty cool, but then kind of pointless when they basically swept it under the rug with one fight with Batman, which was kind of disappointing. But still, it's a good character for a good hero, because he's such a interesting dynamic. And yeah, I mean, from the animated series, again, it's where all these villains kind of set their roots and make people fall in love with them, of the animated shows that they feature in.
Yeah, definitely, especially Batman and Superman.
I mean, I especially liked the version of Bane from the 4th season of the Batman animated series, but basically because he wasn't wasn't just this wrestler who was like, I'm the strongest, like blah blah blah. He was actually smart. He had a cunning line, and it was really well done. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would have to say Bane's a good favourite of mine. So we've reached our number 1. So go on, hit me with your number 1.
Number 1 for me is it's definitely not a popular villain, but I'm a huge Spy-Girl fan, and I have to go with Normie Osborn, the grandson of Norman Osborn. Yeah. And what I like about this villain is that he's not really, he's a bad villain, but he's able to be redeemed because of May. Like, he's ready to end this Goblin and Spider war when May loses her powers, ready to kill her, and then May's able to convince him to say, hey, this is not your path. You should listen to Liz Allen, who is your mother, and not be a villain. And it's interesting to see when he is redeemed, is he a villain? Is he a hero? And you see that he truly is a hero, even though there's so many times he could be tempted to become that villain again. So that's what I like about him, is I guess his redemption story more, but it just proves how strong Spider-Girl's character is, and every villain is as strong as their hero. So yeah, that's Normie Osborn. I love his character. He's a complex character.
I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, he's one of those. I mean, it wouldn't have sprung to mind. I mean, it wouldn't spring to many people's mind as a main villain, because it'd be fair to say that he's not as well known as like the other goblins, but he is an interesting dynamic of the character, because it's how well he bounces off May in the series. And looking back on the old issues, he is a complex character to analyze, because he obviously isn't this horrible person under the surface, but it's just this persona that's just taken over him.
Yeah, this legacy he feels like he has to fulfill, which is the total parallel of his hero, May, who has to fulfill her legacy. So it's just a lot of great themes, I think, from both characters. Again, every hero is as great as their villain. And if you can see parallels like that, I think that's, something to prove.
Definitely. Well, my number 1 is someone you've already mentioned. It's Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin. I could not could not see any other person as my number one, because he is just such an asshole. I mean, he's too good of a villain not to read about. I mean, he was in Dark Reign is where he mainly made his stand, where he was smart. He was absolutely insane, but he managed to convince people to make him the defender of the country. He made his own team of Avengers. He assassinated other heroes. He was basically amazing.
Yeah.
And he's obviously he's had constant different portrayals of him in media and other comics, and obviously within the earlier Superior Spider-Man run where he came back as the Goblin, which was fun. The fact that he'd always kind of been there and behind the surface. He's just had plastic surgery done. That was it. The fact that he was always there behind the surface was always fun, and the fact that he could always tell that it wasn't the normal Spider-Man behind the mask, and he could tell it was always Octavius there, which was always interesting.
He knows his hero very well.
One of my favourite lines out of that entire series was when Spider-Man just backchats him, and you see this one panel of him looking back at them, and he's like, "It's you." Oh, it's great. I mean, he's just an asshole, and he's just one other reason he's on the top of the list is because he assassinated one of my favourite heroes, Miss Marvel, or tried to anyway, and replaced her with one of her main villains. And yeah, he's just an asshole.
Yeah, he's done some crazy stuff, not just to Peter, but to a lot of people. I think he's just one of the biggest villains of the Marvel Universe in general.
I mean, in the Avengers Academy, he basically forced all of these young heroes into accelerating their powers. I mean, some of them were going to die, some of them were toxic to everyone around them, some people were unapproachable because of how scary they looked. And then there were the others where he basically just didn't torture them, but he gave them what they wanted, more knowledge, more fame, which was always an interesting dynamic. And the fact that, you can't leave the man who killed Gwen Stacy off of your list. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I agree. I think Norman has to be on a great villain list, and I'm glad he made it twice.
So, we all had our top fives. Could you name me one of your runners-up?
Oh, man, I wasn't thinking of any runners-up. You go first, and I'll think about it.
Well, I'd have to go with Sinestro. If I had to pick a runner-up, because I do love the villain. I do love the way he's being written at the moment by Tom Taylor. I mean, in some of his issues that he's been writing them with. And through the Injustice comic as well, he was really a really cool villain. But I've always liked him before the New 52 started. I mean, he was always a complex character. I mean, he was a former Green Lantern who basically enslaved his own planet, his own kind, and basically created the Sinestro Corps, the Yellow Fear, with Parallax, and the fact that he's got a daughter in the Green Lantern Corps is an interesting dynamic as well. And yeah, Sinestro is just one of those villains that is a tough nut to crack, because he can dwindle on the side of the anti-hero sometime, because he does help out when it's like a galactic threat, but like in God Hand that's just gone past, he has helped out in that. But it always has been interesting to see how he has reacted to certain things. I mean, he's always been kind of always more sure of himself than all of the other characters, because he knows what's going on. And yeah, I'd have to say Sinestro would be a great runner-up, but he dwindles too much on the side of anti-hero to be one of those for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think anti-heroes can, obviously they're that gray area. But I agree. I think Sinestro tends to be hero more than he is a villain, but when he is a villain, he's great. I gotta go with my honorary pick, either Ra's al Ghul or Two-Face. Ra's al Ghul just because he's badass.
Yeah.
He's a badass. And even in Arrow, I think he's been portrayed pretty well also. In other media, but comic books, I mean, he's just great. And just League of Assassins, him being ahead of that. And then going to Two-Face, I think it's interesting that, is he a villain? Yeah, but he puts his faith in a coin toss. So I always think that's very interesting, and how he became Two-Face is an interesting story. So those would be my kind of two runner-ups. I guess I cheated a bit.
Well, there you have it, folks. We have finally listed off our top 5 villains, and we've already listed off our top 5 heroes. They are basically our favourites of some. Obviously, they may get toppled sometimes, but that's how it is for now. So I'd like to thank you, my great guest Comic Uno, for finishing these lists with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's always fun, especially top fives. Those are always fun to see which ones are alike and which ones are different.
Well, until next time, folks, leave a comment if you want, and leave a like if you'd like. Visit Comic Uno's channel in the description, and I'll see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.